Today I'd like to introduce you to a game called Opus Echo of Starsong. It's a mix of an adventure game and puzzle platformer with some elements of survival and resource management. Here I'm going to talk about things I liked, things I disliked, and this review is going to contain some spoilers in the end, where I talk about the characters and about the game ending, and I will tell in advance when there are spoilers. Overall, I liked this game very much, and even though I don't play survival games very often because I find them too complicated, these survival mechanics here, they were not really complicated, and they did not take away from enjoyment of the game. So let's dive in and talk about different things I liked in this game first. And yes, this game has capybaras, a race of sentient
お
capybaras.
坊ちゃんには無理ですよ。探査は遊びじゃない。
A smoking capybara, how fun is that? There are no other furry races. I don't know if that's good or not good, and if this particular capybara race was Easter egg of some sorts. And once we got those capybaras off the table, let's talk more seriously about other interesting things in this game. Narration is built around the main character trying to remember the story that happened to him 66 years ago, which brings us to a very, very neat death sequence. There is this anecdote of an old man telling his grandkids how wolves were chasing him and they got him into an impossible situation, and then the grandkids ask, "So grandpa, what happened next?" "They ate me." I was dead. That's what the grandpa says. And here, this is exactly this kind of mechanic, except the grandpa says, "Oh, oops, I must be remembering something wrong."
待てもしそんなことがあったならもう一度あの時
Yeah, so that's really fun. That's really neat. Okay, let's try to remember it correctly. And then you as a player can start over and try again. And what is the old man trying to remember? Well, the whole story is set in space, in the aftermath of a big war, and also the whole new space civilization is built on the ruins of older civilization. And you travel around, you explore all those different places and try to find secret caves. The caves are filled with a mystical substance of lumen, which has a certain melody to it, and witches are people, women with special ability to hear those melodies and imitate them with their voices. And once you have this melody, you can calculate the exact location of the cave and travel there. And it's the basic mechanic that the game is built upon. As you travel around, there are some random events where you have to be lucky or unlucky to obtain certain items. Once you collect enough materials, you can upgrade your ship, and actually to progress the story, there are some points where you have to upgrade your ship. There is no other choice. And yeah, it's fun. It's really fun and it's enjoyable. At first I was a little bit scared when I saw achievements like visiting over 50 locations. I thought this game was going to be too long, but in reality, the first playthrough will take you around 12 hours or maybe 10, depending if you're rushing or if you are taking things slow. And then you might want to do yet another playthrough, which might take you a bit less time because you already know how things work and what to do. And you might want to find all the other memories and get all the other achievements. And you can get around solid 20 hours of the game. And if you are not really good with your strategy thinking and you might have lost your own saves like I did, then you then you might need to do a third playthrough to really fully grasp the story and get the rest of the achievements there are. I like graphics in this game overall, but especially I like the graphics in the platforming parts, where those secret ancient caves are shown, and where you actually go around and explore them and gather resources, platformer style. They really were able to convey a feeling of remnants of a mysterious old civilization filled with technology that we no longer understand. Space, awe, and wonder, and venturing into the unknown. It sounds like sci-fi, but I can say that it's not really sci-fi. It's maybe space fantasy more than the scientific fiction, because the story is centered around religion and around an ancient myth about the gods. And those gods could have been the actual ancient civilization that actually built all those caves and created all this technology, but you never know. Fiction or fantasy, the story is very emotional. So one thing that you should definitely expect is to experience a lot of emotions. And this brings us to the last thing that I liked, which is the black hole. Yay! And it's neat. I really like black holes, and I really liked the idea that they had to connect a black hole with the underworld and with the deity of the underworld. So this is really, really neat. And in general, there is something very fascinating around black holes. And any game that has a black hole somewhere in the plot, I'm gonna like it for sure. So that brings us to the end of the things I really enjoyed, and now I'm gonna start talking about the things that I didn't really like. I knew this game was gonna have sound puzzles, and I was really scared to start playing it because I thought these are going to be really complicated, especially for me since I'm not very good with sound. But they were easy. They were really, really, really easy. They got very obvious visual and sound clues. And though, yeah, you can mess up them in the beginning when you just first try. But after you've done a few, then it's very clear and very straightforward. And yeah, very, very easy. Too easy. So easy is one part, but also there are not so many of them. Yeah, you need the star zones to actually travel to places, but you can get many of those star zones, the ones which are not story related, without needing to solve any puzzle at all. And that was a disappointment. I wanted to be challenged, and I was not challenged at all. Some people said on the forums that you could be solving those puzzles with your eyes closed. I don't know, maybe if I actually kept my eyes closed, maybe I would get the challenge that I needed. But with the visual cues, it's way too easy. It's really easy. It's still nice and it's enjoyable, but yeah, I wish I actually needed to think a little bit more. And I didn't feel challenged at all. So I was scared basically for nothing, and it was a little bit of disappointment. The other part of this game that I dislike concerns the story and the characters. And first, there are going to be some mild spoilers where I talk about what I didn't like about the characters, and then there are going to be really heavy spoilers in the end where I talk about the game ending. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, you should stop watching now and just enjoy the game, because overall, yeah, I can't gonna complain now, but it's not a deal breaker. You're still gonna love this game. It's still very emotional and a beautiful story, and it's fun. And me not liking these characters doesn't mean they are bad or badly written. It just means that I prefer other kinds of stories. So my personal opinion is that all the characters in this game lack depth and development. If you know nothing about psychology and mechanics of psychological traumas, maybe your perception will be different. And the characters will appear to you more intriguing and less obvious. But not to me, unfortunately, not to me. And take Remy, one of the characters, for example. The big conflict of the game is that she supposedly hates June, the other character. She does not try to hide it at all, but once we get to her story, immediately it becomes completely obvious that she was abused as a child, and due to that trauma, she has love and hatred mixed up together. She secretly cares, and yet she fails to be aware of it and to express it properly in a non-violent way. When June's life is in actual danger, she comes around and saves him, and that can be considered a character growth of sorts, or maybe a plot twist which should be unexpected, but it wasn't unexpected for me, and therefore it failed to have the intended impact. Moreover, she still maintains hostile exterior afterwards, so whatever character growth there was, it's still very limited to my point of view. Then another character, June. He is very idealistic, but also very impulsive, and his impulsive behavior leads to dire consequences in most cases. And as a result, he struggles with self-worth. Also, since he's an heir to a noble clan, he's got some social responsibilities which create conflict with his growing feelings for Ada. One could argue if he expresses these feelings well enough, or maybe he doesn't, but that does not really matter, because the person who has to hear him is completely disconnected from her own feelings. I'm talking about Ada here. She's not the character you play, but she is another main character. And I myself am autistic, and I've had quite share of my own trauma in my childhood, so I can totally relate to alexithymia and to being unable to understand my own feelings, even be aware of my own feelings. And this is not easy. I can also relate to the tragedy of losing one's teacher and to Eda's wish to find her no matter what. But with all those numerous times, Eda is told to listen to her own voice within and to learn to be herself, I expected that she would be able to do so at some point. But no, she doesn't. To my point of view, at least the way I understood the story, she doesn't. And here we come to the third thing that I didn't like. And it is the ending. Okay, it is sad. And it was clear that it was going to be sad from the way the story is structured. It was obvious that June and Eda are going to separate, but there was a question of how they're going to separate. And yes, I'm a sucker for happy ends. I'm a sucker for happy-go-lucky stories. And I prefer to have a limited amount of tragedy. But then this ending, okay, it's emotional. Yes. It's heartbreaking. It's beautiful. But it was not cathartic in any way. And whatever emotional tension is being built over the course of the story doesn't get any release. This ending left me with a feeling that the main character has learned absolutely nothing from all her life and experience. When I played through the final sequence, when the ship is nearly exploding, I thought this was the moment where she was going to understand that her desire to be like her teacher will be fulfilled through sacrificing herself to save people who are important to her. The same way her teacher did when she volunteered for the mission instead of Eda. like understanding the essence, not the form. She tries to follow her teacher as a form by being a witch, by listening to those star songs, by finding the planets, but to actually be like her teacher is to do the things that she did, and that is to sacrifice herself for the sake of those she loved. I watched the final sequence 3 times, trying to make sense of the writing. But still, to me, that moment didn't look like a moment of clarity. On the contrary, it looked like an impulsive decision followed by a traumatic delusion. Instead of actually understanding something about herself and people around her, Edda falls even deeper into disconnection with her own feelings and with her own self. Her lack of self-worth makes her remember harsh words said to her in the spur of a moment and take these words as the final reality, which she then acts upon. Okay, it is very typical of this kind of trauma. It's nothing unexpected. Most people will not heal and will behave this way exactly in actual life. But come on, this is a game. It's a game about space and weird God religious kind of stories and substance that can carry emotions through time and all of that. And I mean, if you're making that much fiction, why not make characters grow instead and not succumb to their delusions? However improbable that may be, like. But this is what the imaginary realms of games are for, aren't they? To let us live through and experience things which are hard to achieve in real life. This is the kind of stories that I like. This is the kind of stories that I like to see. And yeah, the stories can be just pure entertainment, nothing to think much, just, have fun and enjoy. But this story, it wants something more. It wants to show something more, and it builds up, and still it doesn't give you the resolution. At least it didn't give me the resolution that I hoped for. And instead it gave me a feeling of a disappointment that the main character has learned absolutely nothing. Yeah, I guess space exploration or not, psychotherapy and self reflection is still a must. And this imaginary future society lacks it completely. The mythology, everything is so elaborated, but there is zero notion of any sort of meditation or self reflection or anything. And yeah, when there is no self-reflection and self-awareness in the game, even though the game actually calls for you to develop this self-reflection, yeah, I'm gonna be disappointed. I'm gonna enjoy everything up to that moment, but when that moment comes, I'm just gonna stare at my screen and just feel like, what the actual is that? Okay, to be honest, in the end, there is a certain moment where one could guess that probably Edda is able to understand that it was her voice all along. Okay, there is this final puzzle where there are all so many different voices, and she needs to find the voice which is her own voice and resonate with it. And maybe this was supposed to be that emotional release that the game was hoping to give me. But because it happened after such an impulsive and stupid decision from her side, everything that was to come after felt to me like, I don't know, picking pieces after a disaster. And yeah, like growing flowers and fulfilling her promise this way is beautiful. Yes, it is beautiful believing that June is gonna come after 66 years and find her and see these flowers, and so her promise is gonna be fulfilled. It's all very beautiful. It's all very nice. I don't argue with that. But it still looked to me like, okay, I crashed here. I have nowhere else to go. I don't know what else to do. And I've got these seeds. Okay, I could just plant them. There is nothing else to do, like no other choice, because I screwed up everywhere else and everything else. Okay, I'm just gonna plant some flowers. And Yeah, I mean, I understand what they were trying to achieve. I can see that, but it didn't work for me. It was weird. Like, if the ship actually exploded, and if she died in that exploded ship, and if the ship then crashed on the Phoenix Comet, and then the seeds were scattered as a result of this explosion, and the flowers grew by themselves, and then June came to that her last place and saw those flowers, yeah, then I would be satisfied. Okay. It comes off like really, really cruel that I'm complaining that the main character hasn't died violently, but died peacefully in a very stupid way. But that's how I am. That's what I would like to see, and the game didn't give it to me. It gave me something else. In the end, maybe the story is not about personal growth at all, but about how events and emotions and people resonate through time and space. Yeah, and thanks for listening, for me complaining about game characters not being as insightful as I hoped they would be, and not getting enlightened by the end of the game. Like some stupid girls, when they go on certain kinds of websites, they expect people to get married by the end of the video, and I expect characters to actually realize something important. But they do not, and it's fine.
功労が3階を離れる時が来たら、私の故郷に。必ず故郷に来てもらうわ。私が大好きなところ。
今帰ってきたよ、エイダ。
見える？あなたの故郷とは違うでしょ。1年を通して四季があって、いつも花が咲き乱れているの。
It's still a very good and enjoyable game. Totally recommended. If you have some things of your own to complain about, feel free to post them in the comments. I'll be very interested to see. Take care. Bye.